The cold hum of Meridian Station echoed through the endless blackness of space, a distant outpost perched on the edge of explored territory. Its metal bones groaned softly under the weight of countless stars, and within its steel heart, the bustle of 1,000 lives went on, traders, mercenaries, diplomats, and those who had nowhere else to call home. Alex Cole leaned against the cold viewport of Docking Bay 7, eyes narrowed as he studied the incoming traffic. The faded scars on his jaw twitched as the station's chaotic rhythm stirred memories. He preferred to keep buried. His posture was relaxed, but every muscle remained taut, ready for the unseen threat that always lingered on the edge of order. Beside him, Zoe Bennett tapped rapidly on a handheld console, her fingers a blur of practiced precision. Her dark eyes flicked up to meet his, a spark of impatience mixed with curiosity. "Docking clearance still delayed," she muttered, voice low but sharp. "Shadowvale activity reported nearby. Commands tightening security. No one wants." A repeat of last month's ambush. Alex's lips pressed into a thin line. "Shadowvale's never far. They're ghosts, slipping through systems with stealth tech we can barely detect." The two shared a brief glance, partners forged in fire bound by missions too dangerous for anyone else. Their current assignment seemed straightforward: intercept a lost cargo shipment with valuable tech components vital to the fragile peace between rival factions. But the air around Meridian Station crackled with unspoken tension. Suddenly, our Docking Bay's comm crackled to life. "Cole, Bennett," the stern voice of Commander Hayes cut through the static. "You're up. Cargo's aboard the Erebus. Get there fast and clean. Intelligence suggests Shadowvale is hunting the same shipment." Alex's gaze hardened. Understood en route. They moved swiftly through the labyrinthine corridors of Meridian, their boots echoing sharply against metal grates. Zoe's fingers danced across her wrist console, hacking security feeds to create blind spots along their path. Every second counted. Reaching the hangar, the Erebus loomed, a sleek, battle-scarred freighter with an ominous silhouette. As they boarded, Alex caught a glimpse of the cargo manifest: experimental power cells capable of fueling entire fleets. No wonder Shadowvale wanted it. As the ship's engines thrummed to life, alarms flared suddenly. A sharp warning pulse. Sensors detected multiple contacts converging fast. Shadowvale strike teams deploying. Alex drew his rifle, eyes scanning the viewport for threats. "Looks like this isn't going to be a simple pickup," he muttered. Zoe grinned, fingers all ready, working to scramble the ship's signals. "Good thing I packed extra firepower." Outside, the void exploded into chaos as enemy ships warped in, their black hulls shimmering with stealth fields. The battle for the cargo and their lives had begun. The first missile struck with the soundless violence only space could deliver. The Erebus shuddered violently as its shields flared blue, barely absorbing the impact. Inside the bridge, emergency lights bathed everything in red. Alex Cole was already strapped into the weapons console, his fingers flying across the controls. His voice was calm, too calm, years of military training dulling the edges of panic. 3 enemy ships, he reported, vectoring in tight. Shadowvale class, sleek, fast, and armed to the teeth. Zoe Bennett was at the helm, overriding the freighter's sluggish autopilot systems and forcing the Erebus into evasive maneuvers it was never designed for. The old ship groaned in protest, but it obeyed. "They've jammed our outbound distress signals," she said, teeth clenched. "We're on our own." Outside, the stars spun as the Erebus barrel rolled through space. Twin blue plasma trails streaked behind her as Alex returned fire, tight bursts from the undermounted rail cannons. One Shadowvale fighter broke off, veering away from a direct hit, but the other two pressed in. "They're not trying to destroy us," Alex muttered. "They're trying to disable. Board us." Zoe's eyes flicked to the cargo manifest, still hovering in a side window. "They want the shipment." Alex's jaw tightened. "Then they'll have to come through me." A violent shudder rocked the ship, boarding clamps. They latched on like leeches, anchoring the enemy vessel to the Erebus's dorsal side. "Brace for incursion!" Alex shouted, unstrapping and grabbing his kinetic rifle. Zoe was already arming herself with a compact pulse pistol and a satchel of EMP charges. The internal sensors flared, unauthorized airlock breach. Shadow Veil operatives, clad in jet-black armor that shimmered with adaptive camouflage, began. Pouring in, Alex met them head-on in the narrow port corridor. His rifle coughed fire, each round tearing through the enemy's active camo. He moved like a storm, controlled, brutal, deliberate. But they kept coming. Meanwhile, Zoe ducked into the ship's central core, planting an EMP device beside the control column. As the countdown began, she patched into the mainframe, trying to isolate the cargo bay's SEAL controls. "Buy me 60 seconds, she shouted through comms. Alex, blood trickling from a graze on his temple, didn't bother replying. He dropped. One enemy at point-blank range and spun into cover. The EMP detonated a moment later, the Shadow Veil suits shorted, their visors flickering into blindness. In that brief moment of vulnerability, Alex surged forward, eliminating the rest in a blur of motion. In the silence that followed, both of them stood in the dim corridor, hearts pounding, lungs heaving. "We're still flying," Zoe said, breathless. "But they know we have the shipment. We won't shake them off forever." Alex looked down at one of the downed enemies, frowning. "This wasn't a raid," he said slowly. "They weren't here just for the power cells." He reached into the attacker's armor and pulled out a small cylindrical device. Smooth, dark, humming, with faint light. "What is that?" Zoe asked, stepping closer. "I don't know," Alex said, "but I think this is what they were really after." The device pulsed once, then again, and in the distance, somewhere far beyond known space, something answered. The object sat between them in the dim cargo bay, like a sleeping heart, silent, humming, inscrutable. It had no visible seams, no markings, no interface, yet its presence was undeniable, not just seen, but felt, like it was watching them. Zoe Bennett knelt beside it, her fingers hovering just above its surface. Even without touching it, she could sense the low-frequency pulse, faint, rhythmic, almost like breathing. "It's not just a beacon," she whispered. "It's broadcasting something, or someone." Alex Cole stood nearby, rifle still slung. Across his back, sweat drying on his brow. The adrenaline from the boarding fight hadn't fully left him. His instincts screamed that they shouldn't be near this thing, but curiosity was a hunger neither of them could shake. "You're sure it's not Shadow Veil tech?" Zoe shook her head. "Too advanced. This is something else. I've never seen materials like this. It's absorbing every scan I throw at it. It shouldn't even be registering mass, but it is, like it's selectively allowing itself to exist in our space." Alex narrowed his eyes. "That's comforting." She ran a final sequence, a deep spectrum analysis that pulsed invisible waves through the core of the object. For a moment, nothing happened. Then it responded. A sudden burst of holographic light exploded from the cylinder, filling the cargo bay with a map, galactic in scale, yet unlike anything in their known charts. Constellations were bent, warped, or simply missing. At the center, a black void. Not empty, consuming. Zoe gasped. "That's not a planet. That's not even a black hole. That's—" "A breach," Alex finished, eyes fixed on the anomaly. "Something's torn open reality." And then the map shifted again, this time displaying human and Alari outposts, blinking red one by one. The pattern was clear. Whatever this device was warning them about, it had already started moving, far beyond the borders of charted space, aboard a hidden citadel carved into a rogue asteroid. They watched. Shadow Veil leaders stood in silence as their systems synced with the device's signal. Around them, deep, in cryogenic pods, thousands of cybernetic soldiers lay in waiting, each enhanced, each programmed to kill, each now listening. A hooded figure stepped forward from the shadows. Her eyes were synthetic, glowing dim crimson. "The artifact has been activated," she said softly. "The ancient threshold is opening." Another voice, hollow and resonant, replied through an intercom filled with static. Then prepare the Legion. The era of flesh is ending. Back aboard the Erebus, Zoe collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, still staring at the now dormant device. "We have to warn someone," she muttered. Alex nodded, already charting a course. "No one's going to believe us. Not without proof. But I know someone who might." Zoe turned to him. "Who?" Alex's eyes darkened. "Commander Elias Garin. He led the Ghost Wing Initiative before it was buried. If this is what I think." "It is. He's the only one still alive who knows what the Shadow Veil really wants." She hesitated. "He's exiled. Blacklisted. Last seen on the Typhon Fringe." "Exactly," Alex said. "Which means we're going rogue." As the Erebus slipped into warp, stars stretched and blurred into streaks. Behind them, the device pulsed once more, this time faster. The breach was opening, and time was running out. The Erebus emerged from warp like a specter, streaks of distorted space snapping back into the void. Before them loomed the Typhon Fringe, a graveyard of broken moons and derelict star hulks, where magnetic storms lashed like wild serpents across open space. No formal star charts labeled the area anymore. Typhon had been redacted from official records decades ago. For good reason. Zoe Bennett adjusted the shields manually, her face bathed in blue glow. "Radiation levels are spiking, electromagnetic. Interference is thick as sludge. If we stay too long, this ship's going to melt from the inside out." Alex Cole stood by the viewport, one hand resting on the hilt of his sidearm. His breath fogged the glass faintly. "He's here. Somewhere in this mess." Zoe looked at him. "You really think Elias Garin survived all this?" Alex didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into a compartment beside the nav console and pulled out a small data chip. "This is the last known ping from the Ghost Wing Initiative. 20 years ago. Right here. He didn't vanish. He went dark." They descended. The Erebus weaved through the storm-churned wreckage of forgotten battles, twisting hulls and decaying satellites. Automated distress beacons cried endlessly into the silence, ghosts of captains long dead. Then Zoe spotted it. "There," she pointed. "That asteroid. It's moving against the current." The asteroid wasn't tumbling like the others. It rotated with mechanical precision, controlled from within. Alex leaned closer. Power signature, faint, hidden under a crushed war frigate. He nodded once. "He's alive." Docking was brutal. The ship shuddered and groaned as debris scraped its hull, but they made contact. The airlock hissed open with a metallic growl. Guns drawn, Alex and Zoe stepped into the darkness. The interior of the asteroid base was hollowed-out metal and rust. Tight corridors, lit by flickering old-world halogen strips. Gravity stabilizers were failing. The air smelled of ozone and something older, like scorched bone. Then a voice echoed through the dark, cold, iron-willed, unmistakably human. "I warned the galaxy this would happen." A figure stepped into the light. Commander Elias Garin. He was older, gaunt, wrapped in a dark coat made of patched military armor. His left eye was replaced by a dull blue lens, his right hand, fully cybernetic, twitching slightly with every breath. "Cole," he said flatly. "Still following trouble, like it's a religion." Alex holstered his weapon. "We brought proof. The breach. It's real." Zoe stepped forward and activated the artifact. The pulsating glow filled the chamber again, and with it, the holographic star map. Garen's expression shifted. Not surprise, recognition. "You activated it," he said, barely above a whisper. "You absolute fools," Zoe frowned. "You know what it is?" Garen stared at the projection as if it were a nightmare resurrected. "They're called null keys." There were 5. Ancient tech, predating all known civilizations. We destroyed them after the last incursion. We were wrong." Alex's voice was low. "The Shadow Veil wants them." "They serve it," Garen growled. The Veil isn't an organization, it's a religion, and it worships the entity sealed behind the breach. Zoe's eyes widened. Entity? Garen nodded. A consciousness. Older than the stars, bound in a place where physics stops. The Void Mind. A silence fell over the room. You have to destroy the key, he said. Alex shook his head. It's already started calling to something. Garen's face turned pale. Then it's already too late. The asteroid shook suddenly, explosions blooming outside. Zoe screamed over the roar. We're under attack. Alex drew his rifle. Adrenaline surging. Shadow Veil tracked us. Garen looked up, something like resolution returning to his war-tired face. Then we fight. The first explosion ripped through the outer layer of the asteroid like a blade through old armor. The entire chamber trembled. Dust rained from overhead conduits. Lights sparked and died, and gravity surged and stuttered in pulses. Zoe Bennett barely kept her footing as she shoved the null key into her satchel and sealed it. They're breaching the outer hangar, she shouted. Alex Cole was already in motion. He dropped to one knee beside a locker embedded in the wall, yanked it open, and tossed a heavy plasma repeater to Elias Garen. You still know how to use one of these? Garen didn't answer. He just racked the weapon with a mechanical snap and grinned. You just worry about keeping up. Inside the jagged corridors of the asteroid, flickers of red emergency lights danced across rusted plating. Somewhere beyond, the bulkheads, metal screamed as ships tore through the outer shell. The Shadow Veil had arrived, and they weren't subtle. Zoe, get to the control core, Alex ordered, voice cutting through the noise. If we can overload the fusion lines, we collapse the structure and bury them here. Zoe looked at him. And you? Alex's jaw clenched. We hold the corridor. She hesitated only a second, then ran, vanishing into the shadows. Boots pounding on steel, they came like wraiths. Shadow Veil operatives surged through the corridor with deadly silence. No comms, no orders. They moved like a mindless organism, dozens of them wrapped in matte black armor that bent light and shredded signals. They didn't just walk, they glided. Alex and Garen opened fire from cover. Muzzle flashes lit the dark like strobe lightning. Garen's plasma repeater barked in brutal rhythm, melting through one enemy's chest plate. Alex dropped two more with precise kinetic bursts to the throat and visor. But they kept coming. They're not backing off, Alex growled. They never do, Garen snapped. This isn't a hit squad. This is a retrieval operation. Behind them, a thunderclap rocked the corridor. Zoe had reached the fusion core. Through their comms, her voice came sharp and breathless. Overloading the system. You've got 4. Minutes until the whole place becomes a molten grave. Alex looked to Garen. Exit route? The old commander checked a blinking holo map projected from his cybernetic arm. Maintenance shaft to Dock 3, but we'll have to cut through their line. The corridor shook again. Behind them, through the smoke, emerged something larger. AE Shadow Veil Heavy Unit, bipedal but inhuman. 8 feet tall, plated in spiked obsidian alloy. Its chest cracked open, revealing a cluster of rotating energy cores. God-class assault unit, Garen muttered. They're throwing relics at us now. Alex exhaled through gritted teeth. Then let's make it bleed. They split. Garen leapt onto a raised pipe, firing down from elevation. The assault unit opened its core and launched a kinetic pulse. Garen barely avoided the blast, crashing down hard but rolling behind cover. Alex dashed forward, throwing 2 concussive grenades. The first stunned the giant. The second detonated under its chassis, blowing off one of its legs. It roared, an inhuman metallic screech, and collapsed. Alex didn't wait. He grabbed Garen by the arm and hauled him up. Move! Zoe's countdown was down to 60 seconds. Through flame and dust, they reached the shaft. As Alex climbed, he felt heat building behind him, core temperature spikes, radiation bleeding into the structure. They launched themselves into the service skiff, docked at the emergency hatch. "Punch it!" Garen shouted. Zoe slammed the console. The skiff detached and rocketed away, just as the asteroid cracked like an egg behind them. A blinding wave of white consumed the rear viewport, then gave way to the silent black of space. Inside the cramped cockpit, silence settled. No celebration. No relief, just breaths. Alex looked at Zoe, then at Garen. "We bought time, that's all." Garen nodded. "And now the real war begins." Zoe opened her satchel and pulled out the null key. It was glowing again, but this time it wasn't. Just pulsing. It was resonating. The skiff drifted in silent limbo, hidden inside the fractured hull of a derelict transport barge orbiting a dead gas giant. The gas clouds below shifted like bruises in motion, swirling, massive, quiet. Zoe. Bennett sat alone in the aft compartment. The null key floated inches above a portable gravefield cradle. It pulsed with slow, methodical light, one beat every 3 seconds, faint, hypnotic. Like a second heartbeat inside her own, she couldn't stop staring. It was no longer just a device. That much was clear. The metal surface had begun to change, subtle. Fractal lines etching themselves along its edges, like a mechanical language etching itself from within. Sometimes, when Zoe got too close, she swore she could hear it whisper, not words, ideas. Alex Cole was leaning against the cockpit bulkhead, watching her through the half-open doorway. His eyes were shadowed by exhaustion and caution. He didn't. Like the way the key was changing her. "She hasn't slept," he murmured. Elias Garen, seated at the nav panel, checked the long-range scan. "Can you blame her? That thing, it's not just tech. It's a mind, a construct designed to lure its handler." Alex's jaw tightened. "Then we destroy it." Garen turned to him, that dead cybernetic eye whirring softly. "And let it die without understanding what we're fighting? No. Knowledge is the only advantage we have left. Let her listen." Alex didn't like it, but he didn't stop it. Zoe leaned in. The light dimmed suddenly, then surged. Her pupils dilated. Her fingers twitched. She wasn't looking at the key anymore. She was inside it, somewhere else. There was no up or down, just a horizonless sea of stars burning backwards. Shapes moved, towering and slow. Machines, minds, memories, and then a voice. "You touched the first seal." Zoe turned, though she had no body in this space. "You are not its chosen, yet you were the first to listen." "Who are you?" she whispered aloud, her voice echoing in the compartment of the skiff, though she didn't realize it. "I am what remains." Images crashed through her consciousness, a battlefield lit by twin suns, machines eating the sky. A cloaked council chanting over a dying star. 5 keys floating in unison, drawing something from the dark. The breach opens. The others will follow. The silence will end. And then, for a moment, her own face fractured and multiplied, staring back at her from inside the key. She screamed. Alex burst into the compartment, rifle raised. "Zoe!" She collapsed onto the deck, skin pale, breath ragged. Alex dropped beside her, cradling her head. "Stay with me. Talk to me." Zoe blinked, then reached up and gripped his shoulder. "I saw them," she gasped. "The other keys? There are 5? This is just the first." Garen entered behind them. "And the breach?" Zoe's eyes glistened. "It's not just a place, it's a consciousness. It's waking up, and it's hungry. Outside, in the void." Beyond the derelict's twisted hull, a signal was sent, a silent beacon, invisible to human eyes. Far across the stars, Shadowvale ships altered course. The hunt had resumed, not from motion, not from any physical touch, but from something deeper. Like the air itself was retreating, trying to escape. Alex Cole sensed it first. He stepped out of the cockpit, rifle slung low, eyes scanning the long metallic corridor that stretched between bulkheads. The skiff's dim lights flickered unnaturally now, as if reacting not to power fluctuations, but to a presence. "Zoe," he called quietly, "get up. We need to move." She stood with effort. Her skin had a sheen of sweat, her pupils still too wide. She kept glancing over her shoulder, as if something had followed her back from the vision. "I can still hear it," she whispered. "Even awake." Elias Garin was already moving. "We've been found." He pulled down the rusted viewing shutter over a side panel. Beyond, something vast loomed in the black, a vessel unlike any ship Alex had ever seen. No engines, no visible hull. Just a floating monolith of dark matter plating, adorned with faint crimson glyphs that pulsed like heartbeats. It didn't drift. It hovered, perfectly still, waiting. Zoe stepped beside him. "What is that?" Garen's voice dropped to a hush. "The wire—" "Warden?" According to old Ghost Wing logs, the Warden of Silence was a myth, an avatar of the ancient force sealed beyond the breach. Not a ship, not a being, a will given form. "It's not here to destroy us," Zoe said slowly, as if understanding passed into her like an infection. "It's here to take me." Alex gripped his rifle. "Over my dead body." Outside, space rippled like water. The monolith bloomed open, not with doors, but with darkness. From it came figures, not the stealth units of Shadow Vale, but something far older, cloaked in gnarled armor of obsidian weave, their faces covered by ornate masks without eye slits. They walked across the void without propulsion, simply willed. Forward by the Warden's presence, Alex raised his weapon. "Contact approaching." "No," Garin said grimly. "Not contact. Collection." They breached the outer hull like ghosts, phasing through metal with anti-dimensional warping. The first one stepped into the derelict's corridor silently, arms extended not in threat, but in invitation. Zoe froze. "I know them," she breathed. "I've seen them in the key." Her legs moved on their own. Alex grabbed her arm. "Zoe, don't," she looked at him, eyes glassy. "They're not trying to kill us." "That's never a good thing," Garin muttered. The corridor cracked with a sound, a deep bell-like resonance that came from nowhere, and yet shook their bones. The lead collector raised a hand, in it a fragment of something ancient, a shard. "Of another key?" Zoe screamed. Her voice wasn't just hers. It carried echoes, as if 1,000 others screamed through her lungs. Alex acted. He raised his rifle and fired. The bolt passed through the figure, but not without effect. The mask fractured. Beneath it, no face, just a spinning sphere of orbiting teeth and bone fused into a grotesque mockery of thought. Alex pulled Zoe back. "We run," he said. "Now!" The trio sprinted toward the skiff. Behind them, the Warden's drones advanced without urgency. Every light died as they passed. Every corridor folded like breathless lungs. Zoe turned back once, and her nose bled instantly from the pressure of looking too long. They reached the ship. Alex booted engines. Garin rerouted auxiliary power into shields. As they detached from the derelict, the Warden made no move to pursue. It had made its point. It could reach them, anywhere, any time. Inside the skiff, Zoe finally spoke. Her voice was small. "They said my name." Alex and Garin stared. She looked down at the key. It wasn't pulsing anymore. It was thrumming. The skiff hurtled through slipspace, reality folding around it like a living membrane. Stars outside blurred into formless streaks, and the ship's hull groaned like it resented every second of its existence in this corridor between places. Inside, silence reigned. Zoe Bennett lay on a padded bench in the medical alcove, eyes open, unmoving. She hadn't spoken since the encounter with the Warden of Silence. Her lips moved occasionally, but no sound came out. Just small tremors, like her mind was whispering to something only she could hear. Alex Cole stood near the entrance, arms crossed, watching her with a soldier's patience and a brother's dread. "She's not sleeping," he muttered. Elias Garin didn't look up from the console he was soldering. "No, she's listening." "To what?" Garin finished the repair with a final spark of heat and turned. "To it." Alex's expression was stone. "She's been through hell, Elias. Don't turn this into ghost stories and ancient prophecy crap." But Garin just sat down heavily, the light from his cybernetic eye casting deep shadows across his face. You saw the warden. That wasn't tech. That was intent. And she resonated with it. That key isn't a tool, it's a seed, and I think it's growing. Zoe opened her eyes. At first there was nothing but blinding white light. Then shapes began to form, shifting glyphs and impossible geometry. She wasn't on the skiff anymore, not entirely. She stood in an in-between realm constructed of thoughts and memories and something older than time. Columns of light rose like cathedral spires, but they whispered as they shimmered. There were no floors, only reflections of moments stacked like mirrors. Then a voice. "You're the first to carry the key willingly." Zoe turned and saw herself, but older, changed. Her arms were etched with silver veins that glowed from beneath the skin. Her eyes were no longer brown, but a deep, unreadable gray. Around her floated the other keys, 5 in total. 4 were dim, only one, the one in Zoe's world, throbbed with life. "You have the potential to become what we lost, an anchor." Zoe's voice came as a whisper. Anchor of what? Of boundary, of sanity. The seal weakens, the veil bleeds. If the keys fall, the void mind will cross. Why me? The other version of her, if that's what it was, smiled sadly. Because the others ran. You listened? In the real world, Zoe sat up like she'd been electrocuted. Alex rushed to her. "Zoe!" She grabbed his wrist, eyes wild but focused. The keys were created to hold the breach shut. Each is linked to a human mind, not machinery. The connection is biological. Garen stepped closer, stunned. "That's why they hunt hosts, not systems." Zoe nodded slowly. "I'm not just carrying the key. I'm the key now." The console lit up with proximity alerts, a signal, weak, buried in static. Alex moved to it. It's a repeating ping, old UEC frequency, encrypted, from a station on the dark side of Vestra 9. Zoe's brow furrowed. That station was abandoned. After the AI collapse, Garen's face tightened. Exactly. That might be where the next key is buried. Alex's hand hovered over the navigation input. "Then we go." Zoe looked down at her palm. Faint lines of silver light now glowed beneath her skin, matching the glyphs etched on the key. "Let's find the others," she said softly, "before the void mind finds me." Far away, in a chamber where time didn't pass, the warden kneeled. Before a greater shadow, it spoke without sound, and the universe shuddered in response. The Erebus skiff dropped out of slipspace like a wounded ghost, engines spitting arcs of blue fire as it fell into orbit around Vestra 9. The gas giant below was a swollen eye of storms, ever watching, ever churning. Its dark side never turned. Toward the sun, and clinging to its permanent shadow, was Station Vestra 9, a forgotten skeleton, drifting alone, untouched for nearly a decade. "Looks like a graveyard," Alex Cole muttered, eyes narrowing as the jagged metal shape of the station came into view. It didn't rotate. It didn't breathe. It just hung, silent and waiting. "AI network went rogue here," Zoe said softly, staring at the growing silhouette. "They sealed the station, jettisoned the cores, nothing left but the central archive node, and maybe a key." Elias Garen adjusted the skiff's approach vector. "If there's anything down there, it'll be protected. Traps, sentinels, old-world machine minds, half dead and still dreaming in code." Zoe's fingers tightened around the null key resting in her lap. "Then we don't wake them up," she whispered. "We walk in like ghosts." They breached the airlock manually, worn suits, zero external power. The interior of Vestra 9 was a cathedral of rot and silence. Long corridors lined with dust-frosted terminals, cracked security, droids hanging like limp marionettes. The occasional flicker of broken interface light, trying to speak but choking on static. The walls bore glyphs. Not human. Alex ran a gloved hand across one. "These weren't here when Vestra fell," he said. "Veil markings." Zoe's voice trembled. "They've already been here. They were looking for the second key, too." A security drone inert in the corridor suddenly twitched. Its head jerked toward them. Its eyes lit up blue, then red. "Move!" Alex fired, the shot ricocheting through the narrow hallway. The drone exploded into jagged parts, but others were already activating, some broken, dragging themselves by half-functioning limbs, others slithering along rails like resurrected vermin. They ran. At the core of the station was a chamber called the Thinking Room. Once it housed Vestra 9's Central Command AI, LUTSAM, an adaptive intelligence tasked with maintaining the station's research protocols until it went silent, until it killed its creators. The doors hissed open to reveal the chamber, and a woman, standing in the dark, alive, but not breathing. She turned. Her eyes glowed with soft gold. Her skin was pale, webbed with fine silver lines that shimmered in the dark like etched mercury. She wore a tattered uniform once belonging to the Vestra Science Division, now clinging to a frame that looked half machine. Zoe stepped forward, stunned. "You're a key-bearer." The woman tilted her head. Her voice was slow, layered, as if spoken through two mouths at once. "I was. Before Lusam took my mind and gave me a new one." Alex raised his weapon, but Garen stopped him. Zoe approached slowly. "What's your name?" she asked. The woman smiled. "What it used to be doesn't matter. Now I am only called Cipher." Behind her, suspended in a containment field, was the second key, dormant, pulsing faintly with blue light. But its hum was dissonant, corrupted. Zoe reached out to it. Cipher's voice sharpened. "You cannot take it as you are. You will break." Zoe's hand hovered. "Then help me not break." There was a long silence. Then Cipher stepped aside. "Akai will teach you what pain the others died to survive." The station began to groan, lights flickering as deeper systems began to awaken. Lutzem was stirring. Cipher turned to Alex and Garen. "Take her to the Echo Conduit." "She'll have to face the key alone." Alex grabbed Zoe's hand. "You don't have to do this." Zoe looked into the dark corridor ahead, the path toward another fragment of power, toward transformation. "I already am doing it." She stepped into the dark, and it welcomed her. There was no door, only darkness. Zoe Bennett stepped into it, past the containment field, past Cipher's warning eyes. The air itself shifted as she crossed the invisible threshold, as if time hesitated, then shivered around her. The corridor behind her vanished, not faded, ceased. Light flickered above her, a rhythm of no natural pattern, not electric, not even real. Her boots clicked against a floor that looked like glass, but echoed like bone. And then the whispers began, not voices, memories. "The seal is cracking. Flesh is flawed. Consciousness is clay. We were not meant to open." Zoe's breath slowed. Her chest rose and fell in deliberate rhythm. She had trained for zero-G infiltration, for atmospheric collapse, for mental strain in deep neural rigs. But nothing had prepared her for this. This wasn't a place, it was a test. Ahead, the chamber widened into a circle, black and endless like the center of an eye. Floating at its heart was the second key. Its shape was fractal, changing with every step she took. A sphere, then a tetrahedron, then a spire made of shifting memory, and around it, ghosts. They floated in frozen poses, faces screaming, hands reaching, uniforms of nations long dead. Men and women, key-bearers perhaps, or those who had tried to be, trapped in place as if mid-fall. Zoe kept walking. Suddenly the chamber spoke with her voice. "You can still leave." She turned, but there was no one. "This is not your burden." And then again, her voice cracked and old. "You will die, and in your place something else will wear your name." Zoe stepped closer to the key. "I know," she whispered. "Do it anyway." The second key surged. Light exploded outward, not light as we know it, but the language of pre-thought, pulses of idea, waves of feeling, truth. Zoe dropped to her knees. She was not alone in her mind anymore. She was back on Earth, standing beside her younger self, staring into the sky where a distant orbital ring shimmered like a crown of fire. She blinked and saw herself again, older, wrapped in a cloak of shimmering glass, leading refugees through a burning city. Then again, not herself, but versions of what she could become. 1,000 paths branching, collapsing, looping back. The key wasn't showing her the future. It was showing her consequence. A shape rose in front of her, not a person, a being built of recursive pattern, made of the same dark alloy as the Warden's emissaries, but flickering like unstable code. Its face was smooth, a mirror, and in it she saw her own face, smiling, weeping, breaking. "We are not enemies," it said. Zoe couldn't speak. Her mouth was filled with the taste of memory. "You will carry the second key, but it will carry you too, and then—" "Do you accept this bond?" Zoe stood. Her body trembled, blood dripping from her nose, her ears. She was burning from the inside. She took a step forward and touched the artifact. Yes. There was no explosion, no light, just a long, slow sound like a clock stopping. The second key vanished into her chest. Outside the conduit, alarm screamed. Garen fired a magnetic round through a ceiling vent as a swarm of defense drones burst from the walls. "Zoe, now would be great!" Alex threw a plasma charge into the hallway behind them. "This place is coming apart." And then, silence. Zoe stepped from the chamber, but she was different. The silver lines that had once faintly glowed beneath her skin now burned, veins of light across her arms, her collarbone, her throat. Her eyes had changed, still her own, but ringed now with a strange, impossible glyph. She looked at them both. No smile, just clarity. She stood in the threshold of the echo conduit, lit by the golden blaze of circuitry that now webbed her body. The second key no longer floated in the chamber behind her. It pulsed instead within her, like a second heartbeat, like a twin soul humming beneath the skin. Alex Cole raised his rifle. "Don't move." Zoe didn't flinch. His finger hovered on the trigger. "You don't look like you anymore." Zoe's voice came quiet, cold, not distant, but detached. "I still remember your voice, Alex. That should be enough." Elias Garen stepped between them, hand extended. "Lower the weapon." Alex's jaw clenched. "You saw what the first key did to her. You saw what those warden things said. Now she's got two inside her. We don't even know if she's human anymore." Zoe looked at him, eyes glowing faintly. Not brightly, not unnaturally, but wrong, as if her gaze no longer depended on light. "I don't know either," she said. "But if you don't let me finish this, none of us will matter." They fled Vestra 9 through a crumbling orbital shaft as the station's long-dead AI finally gave way to entropy. Behind them, fire rolled down steel corridors. Screaming warning sirens played backwards and out of tune. A collapsed voice of a machine god choking on its final breath. The Erebus lifted from the platform seconds before it buckled into the planet's shadow. Inside the cockpit, Garen sealed the nav lock to safe orbit, then turned to Zoe. "What did you see in there?" Zoe stared out at the gas giant swirling below. "The truth." "About what?" "About me." She touched her chest, above where the key had embedded. "These artifacts, they're not keys at all. They're anchors. The veil is not just trying to tear open the breach, it's trying to pull minds through it. Twist them, rewrite them." "And the keys stop that?" Zoe's face was pale. "They slow it, temporarily. But when enough of them are in one place," she trailed off. Her skin flickered again, barely noticeable, like circuitry hiding just under flesh. The more she connected to them, the less she resisted them. And yet she still felt herself. That scared her most of all. Alex stood in the doorway, silent, watching her. "You said this thing speaks to you." Zoe didn't turn around. "It shows me possibilities, futures, regrets. I see choices before I make them." He took a step closer. "Do you see the one where you turn into whatever the hell they're trying to make you into?" Zoe's voice was barely audible. "Yes." And a beat. "I don't know if I stop it." That night, if such a word existed anymore, Zoe couldn't sleep. She sat in the med bay while the others pretended to rest. Her hand trembled as she hovered it over a diagnostic screen. It picked up frequencies from her body now. Weak, coded, untraceable, unless you knew where to listen. She isolated. The signal, it was a broadcast, one she wasn't consciously sending, but someone had received it, across the stars deep within a temple that was also a ship. A being opened its eyes. They were red, they were old, and they whispered her name. Zoe. Anchor 2 has awakened. The Erebus skimmed through the glittering veil of the Aureus cluster, its engines humming low as it navigated a labyrinth of dead stars and forgotten debris. Every moment stretched tight with tension. The crew knew they were being hunted. Alex Cole stood at the bridge viewport, eyes scanning for threats that never quite showed themselves. Beside him, Zoe Bennett's fingers traced abstract patterns. On the console, her glowing veins pulsing faintly in sync with the ship's rhythm. Any sign of pursuit? She asked without turning. Elias Guerin's fingers flew over the sensor array. Ghosts and echoes, but nothing solid. Yet. Zoe's voice was sharp. Guerin gave a grim smile. The silence before the storm, across light years far. From the fragile sanctuary of the Erebus, a colossal structure loomed, a dark monolith wrapped in swirling nebulae and storm-tossed plasma. This was the Citadel of Shadows, a temple ship drifting between dimensions, home to the ancient entity known only as the Veil Sovereign. Within its core chamber, lit by cold violet light, a figure stirred. Its skin was smooth obsidian, shifting, like liquid night. Eyes like twin stars burned red-hot beneath a crown of fractal horns. Around it floated shards of the keys, fragments of power waiting to be claimed. The Sovereign's voice was not spoken but felt, vibrating through the chamber and far across the void. Anchor 2 awakens, the balance falters, a hand extended, and the swirling shadows coalesced into a form. An emissary, a warden of silent dread, wrapped in dark armor and glowing red eyes. Send the hunt. Back on the Erebus, alarm screamed as the ship trembled violently. Shields at 50%, Guerin shouted, gripping the console. Multiple contacts, Alex barked. Shadow Veil strike teams closing fast. Zoe stood, her eyes glowing fiercely. They've tracked my signal, she said, voice steady. Despite the chaos, Alex's jaw tightened. Time to fight then. The battle was a brutal ballet of light and shadow. Plasma bursts tore through the void. Sleek ships darted and spun, weaving death from every angle. The Erebus returned fire, shields flaring with each hit. Inside, Zoe reached out with her mind, feeling the key pulse in resonance with the battle. Her veins shimmered brighter, her senses sharpened. She was no longer just a passenger, she was a weapon. Amidst the chaos, the veiled emissaries boarded the Erebus, silent specters moving through walls and shadows. Alex and Guerin fought back to back, cutting down foes with brutal efficiency, but each shadow, fallen, was replaced by two more. Zoe's voice echoed through the comms, calm and commanding. Seal the bulkheads. I'll handle this. In the deepest bowels of the ship, Zoe confronted the lead emissary. It reached out with claws of dark energy. She responded by touching her chest. The keys flared. Reality bent. The emissary screamed, a soundless fracture inward, the fabric of space, and dissolved into shards of pure void. The Erebus's lights stabilized. The immediate threat was gone, but the war had only just begun. Zoe looked at Alex and Guerin. We need to find the third key before the Sovereign claims us all.